Hello, welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, and welcome to a rather splendid location, even by the incredibly high standards of Dan Really Likes Wine. I'm at Boschendal today to meet some very important people in celebration of what we're doing all month on Dan Really Likes Wine, and that is the celebration of Women's Month, and by extension, women in the wine industry. And not just the winemakers, of whom there are a growing number, but people in the broader industry, which is why we've got not just a winemaker, but also a very important CEO and a marketing starlet with a Hollywood background as our guest. But before I introduce them, I'm going to find out exactly where we are. So, hi Danielle, and to Georgie, and to Shirley. We are somewhere magnificent, Georgie. What is this place?
Oh, Dan, thank you. We're at the Mountain Villa, which is one of our premium properties. We let it on a standalone basis. Muntu has been helping us out this morning, hosts our guests here. Fabulous location with views over the valley and the mountain in your backyard.
It is glorious. It's a fabulous place, and you're really going to struggle to get me out of here when we're done filming. It is lovely. It's also part of the extension of what is an incredible property. I've got lost here a number of times quite happily. You're reasonably new into your tenure at Boschendal. Tell us a little bit about how you got here and what the appeal is for you of this extraordinary place.
Thank you. I've been here a year. It's almost my first anniversary. I moved here from Fancourt, where we first met. What attracted me? Really, this is a property with purpose. It's a beautiful property, but what is the overriding factor is that it cares for people. So this is about empowering people. This is about creating thriving communities. This is about encouraging a circular way of living, caring for the cows, caring for the land. So that's what attracted me, was the purpose. Yes, indeed, it's a challenge, and that is also something that that I'm known for. So 1 year in, loving it, yes, making huge progress, and working our way out. Working the way through COVID. It's a really new environment, and we take one day at a time.
As you mentioned, the attraction qualities, I saw both Danielle and Shirley nodding, very much in agreement. Shirley, you run the marketing here. It's quite a multifaceted job, and I imagine there's both an attraction and a challenge, in that you've got so much to showcase of Boschendal, which is wonderful, but you've got so much to showcase of Boschendal, which must also sometimes be a bit of a task.
It is, but it's a wonderful task to have. I'm very lucky in that I look after the wine specifically. There's a separate marketing team that looks after accommodation and the estate itself and hospitality. Anya and Karen are fantastic at that, and they create the most incredible experiences on the estate. From a wine portfolio perspective, honestly, I've been 5 years on the brand, and it has just grown to something that is just so special. And over 300 years of heritage, but still finding that balance in terms of appealing to a new world, a new market as well.
I'm fascinated in how people get into the wine industry, and your path has been particularly exciting because a little bit of Google research shows that a fleeting time spent in Hollywood.
That was confidential, Dan.
We won't tell anyone. But it's been a really interesting journey to get to where you are today.
It has. I started my career in the independent movie industry, as you say. We did some feature films in Los Angeles, and I did marketing there for about 6 years. And it was great. Went to all the Cannes film festivals and everything, very glamorous, but my heart has always been in South Africa. So I came back and did a stint in advertising, and then the opportunity at Boschendal presented itself, and of course I was all in, and it's been such an amazing journey because I don't come from a wine background. But learning about it and falling in love with it has been something that I will treasure forever.
It also gives you the opportunity, purely for work purposes, to do things like drink bubbles at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is exactly what we're doing, and very happily so, and superb bubbles made by somebody who's rather good at it. What about your wine journey, Danielle? When did you fall in love with wine, and what made you decide that this was something you wanted to do?
I think, we've touched on it previously with the pieces we've done for my part of my experience of the wine industry and how I got into it, but it was mostly my uncle. So initially I was quite young. I was around 10 when my uncle started studying at Elsenburg, and it was the stories, it was the adventure that seemed so close, because he studied at Elsenburg and he worked at Kanu, and it was just the idea of having that kind of space between what is a science and what is art, and just the journey to making amazing wines.
Was there a particular wine that just pulled the trigger that made you think, you know what, I love this space?
Goodness, there's been really quite a few. A more recent wine that I tasted that just again solidified my love for Cap Classiques and all things bubbly, was when we went to Champagne. It was a 2007 Salon, and it just solidifies that absolute passion and love that you have for what you do, and knowing that even though it is a long process, and it takes time, but that patience and then the reward at the end of the day, it's so worth it.
Well, I'm going to hold off on the reward for just a moment, as alluring as these glasses of bubbles look, because I want you to take us through them. But the wine industry, Georgie, it's one that is full of romance, and we talk about it with great excitement. But there's also a cold, hard commercial edge to it, and it's a very competitive world, both within South Africa and beyond. Where, broadly speaking, do you see the South African wine industry? And how well do you think we're doing, coming from a slightly different background as you have, and now getting exposed to this part of the world?
It's certainly interesting, and it's something I've studied from a distance, from the garden route, because we always envied the wine bins in South Africa. And I certainly think we're a world player. I think that there's very interesting developments, and the fact that we are very specifically targeting certain varietals in the international market. And, you know, being known for our Sauvignon Blancs, knowing, you know, even our Chardonnays now are world featured. And we're getting to be known not only for the wine bins, but for specific varietals, which is very interesting for me.
A year in, what's been the most challenging aspect of taking over this role?
I alluded to it earlier, but operating in the economic environment we're in, and certainly the challenges and the changes that COVID's brought. In the same breath, that's the opportunity. The ability to flex, the ability to change, and the ability to keep driving through that will bring us out at the top.
Challenges that I think every industry has felt one way or another over the last 18 months, but there are certainly opportunities. The opportunity to tell the South African wine story abroad, I think, has been seized upon over the last stretch, particularly when we haven't been able to sell wine at home, Shirley. As we take wine to an international market, as we're selling it around the world, are we directing our wine the right way? Are we telling the right sort of stories? Are we creating an image of South African wine, do you feel, that does us justice back home?
I think the international market is an interesting space. It's fiercely competitive. And obviously, you know, coming from a South African context, we do need to tell our story because it is unique and it is beautiful. And, you know, even our Cap Classiques, which are celebrated on an international platform, there's a lot of work going into building the prestige of it and just getting people to actually experience the wine and see for themselves that the quality that is coming from South Africa is really world class. And I think the Save SA Wine movement has been wonderful, and it's been so encouraging to see the rally around supporting South African wine, not only in the international market, but locally as well. And it's been a really, it's been an interesting movement where, because of Save SA Wine, people have tried it maybe for the first time, and the feedback that we're getting is just phenomenal.
You mentioned, Georgie, the range of wine. How challenging is it for you as a wine marketer? If you're in New Zealand, you know, you're selling Sauvignon Blanc and a bit of Pinot Noir. If you're coming out of California, it's probably Cab and Chardonnay. If you're in Argentina, you're flogging Malbec to the world, Riesling of Germany. South Africa, we make everything, and we make it so well. So how do you balance that up? How do you tell all of those different stories at the same time?
We're very lucky in that each wine does have its own story. Our strategy is that we have growers in the best terroirs for each of the varietals, and we make wine in Boschendal signature style, which is elegant, it's finessed, it's a beautiful combination between old and new world style. And each wine is its own story that we can tell, and yes, it's a broad portfolio, but in that is the beauty. Our winemakers are very focused, so we have three. Danielle, as you mentioned, looks after our Cap Classiques. We have Jacques Verloon, who's our cellar master, and he looks after only the reds. And then Michael Langenhofen, who looks after our white wines and the rosés. Danielle also looks after Pinot Noir. As we know, it is the heartbreak grape, and she has a really finessed hand and babies it to make sure that we get exquisite Pinot Noir. And I think that focus allows us to create these wines across a portfolio of different varietals. And recently we had the Decanter Wine Awards. And to see the awards across styles, across varietals, across vintages, and that's consistently happening within the Boschendal portfolio, is what makes us excited, because we can achieve that through the focus that we have.
And that focus is showing that you have these separate winemakers. Why Cap Classique for you?
When I took the position, when it was split into red, white and Cap Classique, when I let my mom know, she told me, you know what, you remember when you started and you worked with Cap Classique back then still at Noble Hill? And I was like, yeah, no, I remember. And she was like, do you remember saying that this was the style that you wanted to focus on if you ever had to choose going forward? And it was just such a penny drop moment. I'd actually completely forgot about that. And then how that your journey is kind of set out for you long before you go down that path necessarily. So it was something that I've always been drawn to. And there's something so special, again, with the patience and the time, having that foresight, looking into that glass ball, that crystal ball, and being having that idea of what will this wine show in 2, 3, 10 years' time. And there's something so unique to that. And then Cap Classique, it's just something that I've never been able not to completely adore the style. In whatever method it's being made, but it's something that's so unique and so special.
And it's also a style that usually reflects the person who's making it and their approach. What's your signature? What's the touch you're putting to this that really makes it stand out for you?
So with our Cap Classiques, I try to focus on extremely fine detail, because there are more processes in the production, that every area, every step is an opportunity to make sure that what you end up with in your final product is exquisite and the best that it can possibly be. And for me, on the one side, it's reaching a balance between the acid perception, the fruit, the delicateness of the wine, but also having the wine deliver on fullness, on flavor, on that kind of Moorishness that keeps you coming back. So for me, it's been keeping a balance, but then also having that fine touch between having something that is delicate and delicious to drink, and also something that has body. With Cap Classiques, the style, there can be a tendency to have a wine that's very light, but Jeff Greer said the other day that Cap Classique in South Africa is light in a bottle. So there's sunlight, there's ripeness to it without being too rich. It's just extremely lush.
I think you've sold us on this, so let's have a taste. Cheers, everybody, and lovely to have you all here at Boschendal. As the three of us lesser drinkers have a sip of it, explain to everybody watching exactly what this is, what it's made up of, and give us a little more detail, if you will.
So this is our 2009 Jean Lelong. So this is a 10-year lease age. So our Jean Lelong is our extended lease age, 100%.
10 years.
it's yeah, no, it's.
So
it's
you
a
were at
long time.
primary school when this started.
Was this 2009? I was 15 when this vintage came out. So yes, it's been a journey in this wine, and that is part of the Cap Classique. The focus in preserving that fruit, preserving that vintage for how many years ever that it needs to stay on lease, and making sure that it does end up and it's still well looked after. This is 100% Chardonnay. 2009 was 80% from the Boschendal estate itself and 20% from Stellenbosch. We also started incorporating Elgin grapes, and this was before wine of origin Cape Coast was available. So this is a wine of origin Western Cape, 10 years lease age. The wine in tank goes through its primary fermentation and then stays on the fine lease for at least 6 months. So there's again that richness that it brings to the wine, that fullness, with a high acid but not a piercing acidity. So again, having that balance between what the acid is in the wine and what the dosage and the time on lease brings to the wine to get that balance.
It's my favourite word in wine, balance, because when you get it right, as you have here magnificently, it just gives you something that is so delightful to drink, particularly for breakfast, and I'd highly recommend this as a breakfast beverage. It's going down rather nicely. Balance, I suspect, is also a big part of what you have to do, Georgie, because you've come into a space now where you've got these mad, crazy winemakers who want to do things like leave their bubbles on lease for 10 years at vast expense. How do you balance your work with them, working out, well, yes, their creative license comes up to a point, but then we've also got to look at the bottom line. Has that been a bit of a juggle?
I think Boschendal's really, really fortunate, because whilst we're known for our wines, the farm is so much more extensive. So we have the luxury of diversity, which takes the pressure off any one of the units. So whether it's wine, or in this instance, actually hospitality would be under more pressure, then it gives you the ability to jiggle. So having a farm, hospitality, and now retail businesses combined with the wines gives you a lot of flexibility. So I think it does take the pressure off each of the units.
I'm also getting the sense that as serious and important a job as you may have, it is rather fun.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Fun's important to me. Balance is important to me. So, certainly a challenge. However, also growth for me. There's several new areas in this business, and that's amazing opportunity for me at this stage of my career. But as you say, it has to be packaged with fun.
Well, it certainly is. All of my Boschendal experiences have been exactly that. You have to connect with a whole lot of people. You have to work with this big team. In terms of the work that you do, Shirley, the conversations you have with the winemakers, understanding what they're making, why they're making it, is it purely the winemakers deciding this is what we want to make, or are you as a marketing team also saying, look guys, we've got a gap here, we could really do with an entry-level rosé, or we really need another red blend? Does it work both ways in that sense?
It does. It's highly integrated. So whilst we obviously have to look at market opportunity and viability, because of the way that we structured across a portfolio, it allows us even to create one barrel of something exceptional that the winemakers feel is something worth showcasing and telling the story. So we work very closely together to ensure that we, again, find that balance to make the wines at, the commercial, or wines that we take to market in our heritage portfolio, the Appellation Series 1685, but also, the really special wines that we have in a range called Playpen. So these are wines that we actually allow the winemakers carte blanche, and they can play with it, they can create whatever kind of is exciting for them, and then we try it and we see how it does. And if it is something that is really exciting on a broader spectrum, we'll take it to market as the rest of the portfolio. But I think it is that relationship of really working closely together to allow that freedom of creativity, because it is an art. And as much as what you, of course, need to look after the commercial side of it, first and foremost, it's about the wine. And it's about making sure that they have the best fruits, the best cellars, the best of everything to create their craft. And that's what makes it exciting. It's not making mass-produced anything. It's boutique style, it's very hands-on. And I think allowing them that freedom is what gives us the wines that we can take to market.
Which suggests there's a terrific platform in place to look ahead from. And so as we wrap up over a splendid breakfast here, I'd like to ask the three of you a very similar question. I'll kick off with you, Shirley. We're sitting down in this very spot in 5 years' time, none of us having aged today, of course.
Of course.
What are we drinking in terms of your favourite wine, and what are we celebrating that you, Boschendal, South African wine, has done over the next 5 years?
That is a tough one. How do I pick my favorite child? I think one of the wines that I absolutely adore is our Black Angus. It's a red blend that is named after the Black Angus cattle on the farm. It's big, it's bold, it's juicy. It's something that just, in 5 years from now is going to be even better than it is today. But I would definitely also bring in our Algan Chardonnay. So I think we would have to have a few courses. I think as a holistic view, to Georgie's point, within 5 years, we would like to have achieved some change and inspired a community around us. And it's not just about the wine or the hospitality or any of that. It's how are we touching people's lives. And in 5 years, we just want to continue that legacy of making a difference. Obviously, from a wine portfolio and from an accommodation perspective, we will still be celebrated internationally, and we'll still be continuing the journey.
And who knows, possibly in 5 years lockdown will be over and life might be slightly more
Let's
normal.
hope sooner.
Georgie, from your perspective, again, a glass, a bottle that holds particular allure, and what would you like to be championing in 5 years' time?
Particular allure is a project that Danielle's been working on. It's a Cap Classique. I suspect it sits in the playpen, and it's from one of our old vines. And I'm dying to taste it. And I'm thinking 5 years' time, I would be celebrating
Yes.
Boschendal, sitting here on a sunny day, and everything that we have achieved in giving back, and celebrating a circular way of life.
It's a great philosophy to have, and it's one I'm not entirely surprised by, because a little hidden secret here, Georgie's dad used to be one of my school teachers, so I know the family well, and it's a proud trait handed on. I'm really looking forward to this 5 years' time dinner. I'm going to put it in my diary as soon as we're done. What about our winemaker extraordinaire? What are we drinking in 5 years' time, and what would you like to have added to the winemaking CV between now and then?
I think from the Cap Classique side, Boschendal will continue to grow in both quality and recognition internationally. I think our foothold and the position that we have on an international scale is amazing. It's such an amazing platform to be able to have for these wines. I think they hold their own, and I think from the Cap Classique or the wine side, what we will be celebrating then is just that continuous growth, and how Cap Classique has not only become a more recognized category, but a category and a style that is sought after internationally, be it UK, USA, or fingers crossed Australia. And the wine that I think we'll be drinking, this is also a project we'll be working on, but it is
All very cloak and dagger. All right, will you leave us on an alluring note? I'm going to push you a little further though, because I'd like to see in 5 years' time bottles of your Cap Classique being poured on the Champs-Elysees. I think give champagne a run for its money. It's long overdue a challenge. Guys, it's been a pleasure spending a little bit of time with you, drinking some quite fantastic wine, but also sharing little obvious stories. It's great to have you inspiring us and doing such a wonderful job in your different spaces in the wine industry. Keep that up. Expect to see a lot more of me, because I love coming down to Boschendal. Keep inspiring us. I'm looking forward to that dinner together in 5 years' time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan.
So there we go. A very, very special morning here at Boschendal in the villa. It's absolutely splendid. I'm going to head off to the fountain at the entrance to feed the dolphins for the rest of the morning over a couple more glasses of Cap Classique. This is Women's Month on Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, celebrating some amazing women in the wine industry. And as we've seen today, we've got plenty of them. Cheers. To join the Pick n Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.